Hello and welcome to the first, or I guess second, dev diary for Crusader Kings 3. The response on the first video that I did on Dev Diary 0 was very positive. People wanted me to continue doing these Dev Diary videos just as I had been doing for Imperator. So yeah, I'm gonna do them, because why not? Keeps me informed, keeps you informed, everyone's informed, and information is good. So let's get into it. Greetings and welcome to the first CK3 feature Dev Diary. As this is the first Dev Diary, we wanted to be extra juicy and showcase something that we're excited about, namely what we're doing with Dynasties. Now, if you recall, if you watched the interview that I did with Henrik and Alexander, they both said that their favourite mechanic that they'd worked on in CK3 was Dynasties, so I'm expecting this to be quite good. Dynasties are immaterial, yet fundamentally important things that make Crusader Kings what it is. Your line must follow an unbroken line of members from your dynasty. If your dynasty ends, so does your game. Now, the representation of dynasties in CK2 was limited. A character belonged to a dynasty, and that was that. Excuse me. You got a minor opinion boost with characters that were of the same one, and nothing more. In CK3, we really wanted to emphasize the power that dynasties held, and their impact on the medieval world. We want you, as the player, to feel a bond with your dynasty, and to care for it. To achieve this, we've done a multitude of things. So we can see here the House of Capet. It is of the Robertine dynasty. They've got their own quote. What is a quote? It's a... yeah, just a quote. And you can see when it was founded and by who. That's pretty cool. Firstly, something that we know will especially please CK2 players, we've redefined what a dynasty actually is. Not a monolithic entity, but a collection of houses. No longer will dynasties just have one name, one coat of arms, and one identity. Instead, several houses, aka cadet branches, will be collected under the umbrella that is the dynasty, working together theoretically towards bringing renown upon the dynasty. So what is a house? Each dynasty will have a founding house, usually of the same name as the dynasty, which is the first house of that dynasty. As the game progresses, ruling dynasty members that are distant by blood to the current house head, more on this below, may choose to create a cadet branch, effectively creating a new house under the dynasty. Creating a cadet branch makes the character creating it house head, with the most powerful house head becoming Dynast, and by extension free from the direct influence of their old house head. Making your own cadet branch requires quite a bit of prestige, that you do not stand to inherit your house head's titles, and that all of your dynastic ancestors are dead, so your father can't be alive, for example. Cadet branches and houses come with a lot of flavour, their own names, coat of arms, and mottos, usually inspired by the location in which they are founded, and the founding character. For example, if the ruler of the Jimena dynasty would create a cadet branch in southern France, they might be called the House of Toulouse Jimenez, and so on. So we have the House of Dover Godwin, House of the Godwin dynasty, Faith with Sword in Hand, founded in 1066 by Duke Leofwin of Kent. Lovely. Now, what is a house head or dynast? Within a house, there is always a leader, a house head that wields power over the rest of the members. A house head has the power to legitimize bastards, call house members to war, and demand that they adhere to their faith. Refusal to convert will result in them creating a new cadet branch. The house head also has an inherent leverage on all house members born after they were made head, by virtue of getting a hook on them. More on hooks in another dev diary. Now, for this, I have heard the term hook before. And I went through, after I read this dev diary for the first time, I went through and I watched my interview, the talk that they did. I went through all my notes that I took at PDXCon, and I could find no mention of hooks, but I have heard this before, so it must have been something that was said to me in the press briefing that we had for CK3 that I forgot to write down, and for the life of me I can't remember what was said about it, just that hook is something that I know is a thing and have known since before the dev diary came out. If I remember before they talk on them on the next dev diary or whatever, whenever it is, then I will make a video about it, but for right now I just cannot remember. Anyway, They also gain passive prestige based on the number of members in their house. House leadership follows the succession of the house head, so that if you're the leader of your house, you will most likely keep that title on succession. The dynast, on the other hand, wields significantly more power than a house head, with their power encompassing all the members of all houses of the entire dynasty. The dynast is always the most powerful house head of a dynasty, with leadership being updated upon the death of the old dynast. In addition to everything the house head can do, the dynast can also disinherit and restore inheritance, denounce and forgive members of the dynasty, which affects opinion in a major way, personally claim titles held by dynasty members, and make dynasty members end wars they have against each other. All of these powers work against every member of the dynasty, not just the house they're part of. The dynast also gains prestige for every living member of the dynasty. Being the dynast is very powerful indeed, but you have to carefully weigh the powers against other benefits as they cost renown. So, what is renown? Renown is a resource accumulated by a dynasty and is used for several things. Firstly, all renown earned by a dynasty counts towards its level of splendor. The level of splendor is the outward perception of the dynasty, how well it is perceived in the eyes of the world, and affects the prestige you get on birth, the prestige when marrying into it, and the maximum long reign opinion you can get. Having high level also makes it much easier to arrange marriages, especially with dynasties below your level. Regardless of if renown is spent or not, the level of splendor won't decrease. The higher your dynasty's level of splendor, the more impressive its coat of arms frame will look. Peasant dynasties will start at a negative splendor level, which means you'll actually lose prestige from marrying them. So you've got a really very talented woman being born to a peasant dynasty. Is it worth marrying them? Do you want to lose prestige? Depends on how much you've got at the time, I guess. Renown itself is a spendable currency, representing the clout your dynasty holds over itself. Its use is twofold. Firstly, it can be used for the most powerful dynasty interactions, getting claims, disinheriting, etc. And secondly, for unlocking dynasty legacies. More on this below. So I want to stop here and interject myself for a little bit. This disinheriting thing. I'm wondering how you get new dynasties. And can cadet branches break away from the house head, the dynast? Can cadet branches break away from the dynasty to create their own dynasty? And I really hope that you can. I'm also thinking that perhaps disinheriting could be twofold. Firstly, you do not inherit your father's titles because you're a bastard or whatever. Not a literal bastard, but like I don't like you. You are disinherited. You are not receiving titles. But I'm also thinking maybe you could disinherit an entire cadet branch. You can disinherit an entire house, and that would form a new dynasty. The house head of that cadet branch, or former cadet branch, would become the dynast, and it would, of course, be very low in splendor because it had been kicked out of a previous dynasty, that kind of thing. I think that would be really, really cool. I would love to see that be a part of it. Don't know how historical it is, but I can just imagine the amount of dynasties in the world going a bit like an upside-down Christmas tree as time goes on if new dynasties can't form. The way you get renown encourages you to mimic a playstyle that was common in reality, but that wasn't very practical in CK2, spreading your dynasty far and wide. You'll gain renown for every ruler of your dynasty that isn't a subject under another member of your dynasty. This is based on tier, which means that a king will give more renown than a duke, and so on. Marrying in such a way that your dynasty ends up on the throne of a foreign realm is therefore useful for other reasons than to just murder them until you inherit their lands. Having your dynasty spread out will give you more renown, and thus a more powerful dynasty overall. For example, if you are playing as the King of England and you will not gain renown from your landed vassal brother, but you will gain renown from your dynastic cousin ruling a duchy in the Holy Roman Empire. You will also gain renown for marrying away your dynasty to be spouses of powerful rulers, symbolizing your newfound influence in their realms. This gives you a reason to carefully plan the marriages of your kinsmen, even if you're not in need of an alliance. Lovely, very nice. So, what are Dynasty Legacies? We all know that the playing field in Crusader Kings is a very volatile one. You might be Emperor of the World as one character, while being reduced to Count of Norfolk as the next. Personally, I've never found this to be the case. That's a pretty big jump. Dynasty Legacies offer some permanence in this otherwise very wild world, in the form of modifiers and unlocks that affect every member of your dynasty. Essentially, by using Renown, you get to shape what your dynasty is known for. There are a myriad of legacies to choose from, all divided into tracks with an appropriately thematic name, such as Kin, Guile, or Blood. The full list being here. Warfare, Law, Guile, Blood, Erudition, Glory, and Kin. These aim to represent notions the world had or has about certain dynasties, i.e. that the Seljuks are warriors, the Abbasids are lawmakers, the Habsburgs diplomats, and prone to marrying their own kin, etc. Each legacy track contains 5 unlocks, each costing a progressively higher amount of renown to unlock. So this is the legacies, and yes, you can see that there is multiple little blocks that you can purchase in each one, and then they have a nice little picture at the end for you. They all link together. It's quite nice. So yeah, we saw a few of these. So things like in the blood tree, having the ability to avoid certain negative traits, or have certain positive traits or negative traits, I think you could choose, be more common to appear in members of your dynasty, those kind of things. So we saw a few of them. We didn't see an awful lot of them, though, to be fair. In this dev diary, we'll go into details on one of these tracks, Blood, which also happens to be his favourite. I think this was written by Henrik, but I'll have to check. This track is designed for those of you who enjoy breeding traits into your family line, with the first few unlocks all focusing on increasing the chance of inheritance, emergence, and reinforcement of genetic traits, and more on genetic traits in another dev diary. The last few unlocks will give you the chance of negative traits appearing, essentially allowing for more risky marriages. Give you the chance to choose a genetic trait to be more common among your kin, so beautiful, intelligent, and strong, also giant and dwarf. I think dwarf is the one that shows up as the example, or at least it showed up as the pop-up, or as the tooltip when he moused over it in the press briefing. No matter how much I pleaded with art, I couldn't get a Habsburg chin trait though. That's a shame. And finally, rounding off with an increase to your dynasty members' life expectancy, with which increases both their average age and average fertility. This even means that women of your dynasty remain able to bear children for longer. Legacies take a long time to unlock, and you will have to work hard towards unlocking even one full track, though their power more than makes up for the wait. Legacies are chosen and unlocked by the Dynasty, so make sure that you are in control of the dynasty. So that's all for this dev diary. Won't spoil any more of the legacy tracks for now, but rest assured that they will all offer very interesting opportunities for you to shape your dynasty as you would like it. Next up, we have a sneak preview of the map, so stay tuned for the next dev diary, which I will of course be covering. Just speaking of the map, going over it again, it goes down to like the Gold Coast, and then across to the Tibetan Plateau, and down to like Pegu. So it's a bigger map. So yes, that is Dynasties and Houses, and personally I think they are looking really rather awesome. I know some people are going to be a little bit put off by the Dynasty Legacies, because it is a little bit gamey, especially, you know, women being fertile for longer, although that is a bit more realistic in my opinion than, oh, you're 45 now, no more kids for you. It's just a hard cut off is a little bit iffy. But yeah, that's it for this dev diary. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you want to keep up to date with any and all CK2 news, then follow the channel, subscribe, likes, comments, all that good stuff, and I will see you for the next one. Bye-bye.